Hey everybody, and welcome to the first of hopefully a bunch of videos coming up in the series that I'm going to call Board Game Roulette. This is going to be a series of videos where I'm going to take a completely randomly chose game out of my collection and just go over it a little bit, show you what the game's about, and maybe give you a few thoughts about my initial impressions of the game. Our first randomly selected game today is going to be Escape from the Aliens in Outer Space. Okay, so the stats for Escape from the Aliens from Outer Space. This is a hidden movement and roll game for 2 to 8 players, ages 13 and up, with an expected play time of 30 to 45 minutes. Is currently scored at 1.84 out of 5 on the Board Game Geek weight scale, meaning most players don't find it to be very complex, and it is currently ranked at number 936 as far as popularity on BoardGameGeek.com. It was originally released in 2010 in both Italian and English, with English editions published by Cranio Creations. The most recent English edition released in 2016 by Osprey Games. There are 4 designers credited for the game design, none of which have names that I'm comfortable pronouncing, and a single artist who also has a name that I'm not comfortable pronouncing, but I'll go ahead and throw their names up on the screen here so you can see. Okay, so you might be wondering, what is this game actually about? Well, imagine that you and the other players are all scientists up on a space station. You're doing medical research, trying to cure a disease that's been killing millions of people down on Earth. And you discover an alien spore that has positive results when implanted into the cerebral cortex of the patients. It seemed to be working good for a while, but then all of a sudden it caused a change in one of the patients, changing him into a man-eating monster. Just as this is discovered, the space station loses all power, casting it into complete darkness. You can't see your hands in front of your face. And not only that, but the alien disease has become a plague, meaning that some of the players may have been changed into monsters themselves, and nobody knows who are the regular crew members and who are the monsters. The crew members are going to be trying to find their way through the dark to the escape pods to try and get out of there, while the monsters are trying to hunt them down before they get there. Alright, so how does the game work? Well, the game takes place on this hex map and uses some of the cards that you can see over on the left there. And this is just the introductory map. As we can see, there are several maps that are available for the game. Just to flip through a few here, these are some example maps that I was able to download. There are some that are good for 2 players, 3 players, larger numbers of players. Some are more complex than others. It gives you a really wide variety of maps that you can play on. These are all downloadable from the manufacturer's website. Now, just a quick note, this is the print and play edition of the game. All the components are pretty lightweight as far as the amount of ink that was used, so there's not much detail in the graphics that are being used on these components. The actual commercial version is a little bit nicer, but it's functionally the same game. Now, as you can see on this map, there are several hexes, and in each hex there is a code number. This may not be real easy to see on the camera, but for example, in this hex we have an N03, here we have an O04, a P04, and so on. In other hexes, we have some symbols, including this is going to be the starting point for the aliens. This is going to be the starting point for the humans. And any of these numbers with the brackets here are going to be the airlocks that the humans are trying to get to. Dark hexes are hexes that are considered not safe, and light hexes are hexes that are considered safe when you step into them. So how does movement work? Well, let's say you're a human and you step off into this hex here, which is M11. The first thing you do is, since movement is kept hidden in this game, this is going to be folded up in order to make sure that other players can't see what you're doing. And on every turn, you're just going to make a note here of where you move to. In addition, anytime you move into a dark hex, you have to pull one of these cards from the deck. And what this is going to do is this is going to cause a noise to reverberate through the station. And that's going to be, depending on what symbol you draw here, is going to be the type of noise that's applied. This red symbol pointing right down to the hex you're in, that means that you are going to announce to the other players that a noise came from the hex that you're currently standing in. This green symbol with the arrows going out everywhere means that you can try to misdirect the other players and indicate a noise came from somewhere else in the station. You can indicate anywhere else in the station that you want. And finally, this black symbol indicates that no noise was made at all. Now, human players can move one hex at a time, while the monster players can move up to 2. And either player can go back to the hex they started from. They actually have to move somewhere each turn. Now that's the basic addition of the game. That's the whole game right there, really. The human players will try to sneak through in order to get to one of these airlocks, while the monster players have to try to figure out where they're at, and if they can land on the same square, they can attack and kill one of the humans. If the humans are able to get to an airlock, that human wins the game. If the monsters are able to take out the humans, then the monsters win the game. Once you've gotten a few plays of the basic game under your belt, you can add on a couple of advanced options using these additional decks here. The first option is condition of the airlocks that you're going to the escape hatches with. When you go to one of these escape points, a random card is drawn from the deck, and it's going to be either green, it's open, or red is closed. If you get to that airlock and you draw a red card, that airlock is damaged, you can't go into it and neither can anybody else. That is completely closed off for the rest of the game now. If you get to an airlock and it has a green symbol, it works and you can escape using it, but then it's closed off from all other players. So you get out, but nobody else can through that airlock. So pretty simple addition there that adds on a little bit of extra strategy to the game. The other item, or the other deck, is an items deck. And how this is used is, as you're moving through and you're pulling your cards showing what kind of noises you make, some of the cards have this little box symbol up in the corner. And if you pull one of those, you get to draw an item card. Now, only humans get to use items, but the monsters can still keep them in their hand in order to not give away that they're monsters. And there's a few different types of items that you can get here. This one is a sedative. When you're taking a sedative, you don't create any noise even if you're in a dangerous area. This is a teleporter that allows you to move to another sector in the station. This is Adrenaline, allows you to move 2 spaces instead of 1. This is a Spotlight. This will shine, you'll get to select a sector, and it's going to highlight that sector and all the sectors around it, and you'll get to see any players that are there. And lastly, this is an Attack, and that allows you to attack just like the monsters do. So that is adding some additional strategy. Oh, what was this one? Oh, Defense. That's a defensive card you can use against an attack. So if you're playing an advanced game, you can go ahead and add those additional cards on as well. Honestly, I have never played the game with items. It works quite well without them. But it's an interesting idea to go ahead and add on those extra abilities to the game. Okay, so whenever I'm going over a game, I like to take a look at what other people think. And I usually do this by going to BoardGameGeek.com and taking a look at some of the comments left by other players. Now, this game was rated an average rating of 6.9 out of 10, with about 2,500 people applying a rating. And just a couple of comments left by other players, just to get an idea where they're coming from. I like to take a look at someone who mentioned that they really liked the game, and someone who is really on the other side. Just a couple of comments I'd like to read here. One is a rating of 10 out of 10 by user M. Farley, who stated, "This is a great experience every time I get to the table. Hidden movement for one player is a great mechanic, but all the players, it's insanely awesome. Buy this game." Now on the other side of the coin, giving it a rating of 1 out of 10, user Mozart827 says this is a horribly dull and ridiculous game. The setting is stolen from every other alien and space movie. The rule book is badly written. The components are dark or very gray and overall uninteresting, and the gameplay is boring. It is not recommended at all. So what did I think? Well, I've played this a couple of times with my game group, and I don't know, I thought it was pretty cool. You have to kind of use your imagination a little bit in order to kind of get in the mindset of being in a completely dark area, you know, when you're playing in a lit room. And you have to kind of, you know, put aside your disbelief a little bit. You know, kind of ignore the fact that nobody thought to pack flashlights onto a space station, and you know, kind of get into the mindset of the whole running from aliens thing. It's actually kind of interesting to see how some of the players were able to track the other players down. Some of the players in my group were really good at hunting, which I thought was really impressive when all you're getting are these little sound notes here and there. While at the same time, the players who are humans are trying their best, you know, in order to tiptoe around, try to throw off the monsters and so on. It's a really neat balance of a game. I've only played it a couple of times, but I hope to get a few more plays in sometime using some of the newer maps and that kind of thing. And I'd like to try out some of the more advanced options like the items. So overall, I've only played it a couple of times, but I thought it was pretty good. I would recommend it. This is, like I said, the print and play version. You can actually go to their website and download this version for $1.50, print it out and play it for yourself. Go ahead and put a link in the video notes in order to point out where you can go ahead and do that. Otherwise, there's a much shinier version available that you can download in order to get a full commercial version as well. You'll be able to see that at the same website. Well, thanks very much for watching the first episode of Board Game Roulette. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. If you've played Aliens in Outer Space, please leave me a comment letting me know what you thought. And hopefully we'll see you next time on the next episode of Board Game Roulette. Thanks.